Simon, who's created a climate of inaccuracy?
Oh, this is Nigel Lawson, who went unchallenged on Radio 4 as he uttered climate heresies. And he mooted that there'd been no significant increase in world temperatures in the last 10 years, and the whole thing was a racket. And this was allowed to pass unchallenged on Radio 4, and they've had to apologise. They are an odd bunch of cranks, the climate change deniers, but I rather like them. I think it adds a little bit of colour to an otherwise gloomy scenario, doesn't it? I don't know where he gets his ideas from. Possibly Nigella made him a baked Alaska recently, and he went, there, you see?
The Global Warming Policy Foundation that he's a part of has sort of been spewing out figures that aren't correct, and they've been saying that the temperatures have actually been steady or going down for the last few years, when in fact they've clearly been going up year on year. We've had the hottest weather we've ever had, you know, in the last 10 years. We've had the hottest
according
records.
to scientists, though.
I know. It's where I go to for my info, you know. And we've seen awful impacts of this, you know, storms and hurricanes and floods. And only this week, you know, it was 20 degrees in London at the end of October. I had my shorts on. Nobody wants to see that. It's awful.
You know Nigel Lawson is somebody who doesn't really care about the future of the planet and future generations, because if he cared about future generations, he wouldn't have called his daughter Nigella. Really? If that was a normal thing to do, you'd be looking here at Derricka Barnes.
I mean, is this evidence, do you think, and I know he's not necessarily into evidence, but is this evidence that old people lie? They come from an age when it was harder to fact-check. You could just sit where you liked, saying whatever you liked about anything, in an authoritative enough voice, red enough trousers. People would generally believe what you were saying.
There is a kind of an elderly British male who is convinced that he can do his own research, thank you very much, and that this stands up, you know.
Well, I mean, it's not as nuts as some, because obviously in the States, there are, you know, whenever there are those awful catastrophic hurricanes that come through the Caribbean and the southern states, you know, there'll always be a pastor in America who blames it on gays, you know. And as a homosexual, sometimes I wake up in the morning and go, did I... How drunk was I last night? Just phoning a friend going, did I destroy Puerto Rico? I know I get a little bit feisty on the tequila, and I'm not sure.
It all comes from this. It's like this idea of balance that we have now. That, you know, the news particularly has to be balanced. And what that sort of come to mean, particularly on sort of broadcast news, is that if you have somebody on who says something sensible, then you need to have balance from somebody who's not sensible. Yeah. So if you have somebody on who's a scientist, then you need to have somebody on who reads the entrails of pigs and says whatever mad crap comes into their brain, like Nigel Lawson. It's like if you have somebody who doesn't cook faeces into brownies, you have to have somebody who does cook faeces into brownies. That's what balance is.
It's not the job of a Today programme to be the arbiter of who's lying and who isn't.
Sorry, it literally is.
You should ask. This is the news that the BBC have upheld complaints that climate change sceptic Lord Lawson was insufficiently challenged on the Today programme when he said that global temperatures have not risen in the last decade. Both sides of any argument have to be aired on the BBC. Talking about climate change without giving a voice to sceptics would be like talking about the dangers of smoking without balancing them out by talking about the mild, smooth taste of a child-rolled cigar. The BBC admits that it should have challenged Lord Lawson, maybe by letting off a foghorn every time he tried to speak, or repeating all his statements back to him in a silly voice. If anything, the world is getting cooler. The BBC initially said that Lawson's comments reflected the views of the US government, although if we now have to maintain a balance between reality and the views of the US government, then it may be time to pack Sophie Raworth into a box and turn BBC News into flats. 2 points to Simon.